My name is Vincent. I go by he and pronouns. I'm a fourth year marketing and management major, and I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii. A lot of the times I knew I was pretty much like the only Vietnamese person like at my school. Like there was this one lucky moment, very lucky. It was in third grade, and there was this girl who immigrated over, and her name was Quay, and Quay Dang. And she was the first like Vietnamese person I've ever seen like in my age like group, you know. Like I think at that point like I didn't really go to a lot of like parties yet, like my family or my parents, so being able, and it's funny because the whole school knew, and it's because she obviously didn't have like she wasn't the best in English, so what did the school do? They found the one Vietnamese person in the school, and it was me. And like I think the school knew that I spoke like Vietnamese. I don't speak it that well, but I think I could speak it enough to like converse with my parents, and like my parents did like my mom did a really great job at, I don't want to say brainwashing me, but like basically tricking me into like speaking. Like I think one time after like class, like kindergarten or something, I would come home and I remember she would tell me I would say like fish, like in English, like fish, and she'll be like, no, I don't know what you're saying. Like I don't know what you're saying. What do you say? And so then I'll be like, ga ga. Like, so yeah, so I would like learn like that, you know, and I'm very thankful that they did that. But yeah, I spoke to this girl, and like all I knew, like I was in third grade, you know, like how much Vietnamese did I know? I don't really know. And so I remember just being like oh, like I was like Jiao. I was like Jiao, like, and I didn't even know like I said Doi, and I obviously she's like from Vietnam, so like I don't know if she was offended, like everything like that. So I was just like, oh, like my name's Vincent, like, you know, da da da, and she smiled. And I ran away because I was so nervous. Like I don't know like what the school was trying to do, but I think that moment was really special because, again, like it was the first time I've ever interacted with someone my age, and like, but I had to do it in Vietnamese, and I think that like I think in the moment I felt like this was a test. And like why can't I like speak to her? But the rest of the time like I hung out with her a lot. They've placed us together a lot, which like was interesting. I mean, I understand like she doesn't understand and I do. Did I help her that much? I don't think so. But I remember having to attend like after school classes with her, which like I don't know if that's legal. I don't know. Anyways, like I had to attend after school classes with her and stay after school longer. I introduced her to my dad. My dad and her like hit it off. Like obviously, like they talked all the time. We met her dad, and then they hit it off. And now we're all like grown up, and my dad still talks to like her dad from time to time. The brother, she has an older brother. His name is Koi. Yeah, and Koi like. Koi was, I believe he works with one of my uncles now in construction, so kind of like full circle. And Koi actually joined like the military. She went to a different high school and everything like that, but she stayed in touch with me through Instagram. And when we graduated high school, she came out to it was COVID, so we did like what we call lay drive-through. So like you would post on like social media like where your lay ceremony was, and then people would drive like to your house, and then you like give them like favors. So my parents like cooked like spring rolls, and we like gave them out as people came, and I stood in the front, and then people just came and like gave me a lay, and then they would take a picture, and then they would leave. And so she came. She was the first one to go, and I was like so shook, and our whole family was also really shook because we haven't seen her in so long, and like it was amazing. But sorry, I'm getting carried away with the story, but she pretty much started this spark in me of like I'm Vietnamese, like I'm seen and like perceived by others as like this Vietnamese boy, and whether like I can speak or not, like that's, you know, the next question to be asked. And so I think after Quay like left, in like before middle school. Like I just never really was so heavily invested in like Vietnamese culture. Like I just knew I was Vietnamese and that was enough for me. I would go to like Thut Festival. Our Thut Festival is not as big as the one here. Like it's like at Waikiki Beach and there's like a few like tents and like maybe some people singing and you know I would hear it. I'm like, oh, like cool. I put on my like ao dai, very ugly ao dais. Like, sorry mom. Like I wish we like had different ones. And yeah, we would just you know do like the small traditions, but I was never in the uniform. The school, the church.
Oh, like that.
We had Sunday school, but it was like just, I called it Vietnamese school. And so it was at like the temple. We would go, my mom asked me if I wanted to go and I was like, okay, cool. So I went. There was a ton of like Vietnamese kids there. I was so nervous. I think and when we were going through the lesson, like the monk, like, man, was like just yelling at us. And it was the most traumatic thing I've ever like experienced it was the most traumatic experience I've like been in my life, and I just seeing all the accents, seeing everyone like excel in like it was just traumatizing to me. I think that day like I pushed away like attempting to learn the language in its entirety, and I think that's something that I do regret like growing up, and of course I can like still learn it, but that takes time. And coming here, like, I would love to give a shout out to Chloe Vo, because during one of our Swan festivals, I remember it was me and one of our good friends, Tina, and we had to read like the script. And there was an English version and there was a Vietnamese version. We would say our English versions, and the goal was to say our Vietnamese versions. And I couldn't read it. Like I could read it so much. I told myself I could study it very well, but it was just so difficult. Like I couldn't, especially because it was like maybe like 3 days until the actual show. So I knew I just couldn't. And I remember Chloe like yelling at me, like just like a little bit. And I got emotional. Like I wasn't emotional that I couldn't do it. I was emotional that I never felt so like detached from like the language and the culture that I can understand, but I can't read or write it. And so that's something that I really wish I like took more seriously growing up, which was, you know, going to Sunday school, or not Sunday school, Vietnamese school, and being able to survive in like this room full of other Vietnamese kids I never knew and try to excel in something that was so foreign to me. But from then on, I pretty much learned like my Viet through my parents. It obviously wasn't the best. Like there was some like English words thrown in there, and I always told myself too, this was me teaching them English. Like it's fine, you know. And like they're teaching me Viet in a way, but was I really retaining anything like really complex? No, like not really. So that's definitely something that I wish I did better, was retain more so that I can be able to like go back to Vietnam, let's say, and be able to read or be able to speak like more. I went to Vietnam like 2 years ago in like December, and it was such like a amazing experience to like go when you're older, because I used to go like every 2 years when I was younger, but then it got like really expensive and stuff, so we stopped. And so 2 years ago I went for the first time in like 6-7 years, and it was amazing, but I feel like I was mute like most of the time. And a lot of people say like, oh yeah, just throw yourself in Vietnam, you'll like learn it really quickly. But I have never been more scared like in my life, like to, yes, be near my parents and stuff and like have them speak for me. But there was an instance where I was hanging out with the VSA member, her name is Jane, or GJ, and I was alone with her, and she obviously could speak really well, but when it was time to go home, like she threw me in the Uber equivalent of Vietnam and sent me home, and had to tell the driver, oh, he doesn't speak Vietnamese, so don't talk to him. And that was the most embarrassing thing like I've ever like sitting in this car for 30 minutes with this man, like knowing that one, he could take advantage of me, like with that language barrier, and also just knowing that when you're in Vietnam, like, and you're from America, like you're seen like really differently. So that was just something that was like embarrassing, scary, and like I just felt disconnected. So if I was to return to like the good old days of the school, the Vietnamese school, I would probably take it a little more seriously. And who knows, maybe I'll learn it in the future when I have time or something like that. But it's really hard, like, to learn all those like accents and everything like in like just a day or a week. But yeah. One specific word that comes to my mind is like responsibility, and excitement. I think responsibility and excitement go hand in hand for me personally, and that's because every time like I get to talk about Vietnamese culture, or I get to work with like any sort of Vietnamese community, like especially like VSA for example, there is this like, again, this sense of responsibility to not like simply uphold the culture, but to respect it, and to tell my version of like what I know, and I know that version is different for everyone. So also being able to accommodate and be relatable through like our activities, our events, or however I'm interacting is really important. And so when it came to like when I was like the SWAN director for my sophomore year in VSA, it was a big role. Of course, it comes with a lot of responsibilities, but I think the most important part of the role itself wasn't the leading like committees. It wasn't interviewing for the committees or putting the show together or like all that jazz. It was literally the title. Like this title like sets the tone for almost everything. And so going through that writing process was like trying to find like a needle in a haystack. Like how can we differentiate ourselves while also telling a story, while also making sure that everyone can relate to this theme, regardless if you're Vietnamese American, Vietnamese, or not at all. And so we came up, with that theme of like reuniting when the flowers bloom. And our story, although it took a really large focus to like our families, I think one thing that I really enjoyed hearing was after the show was over, a lot of non-Vietnamese like people who attended the show could relate to it so much, especially like those of like other minority groups as well. So I think that was something that I like told my like SWAN director, and I was like, we did it. We didn't just honor this like culture, but we took our responsibility and like took a step out of like this whole community, and made sure that we're heard like on campus. I think the VSA like club is like a big club on campus compared to the other cultural clubs, but I think our show is just something that there's a lot of like intricate details that I could go into. I think our SWAN show is like such a huge responsibility for us, and it really allows at least me to connect with this idea of like being Vietnamese American. Like what can I contribute to the Vietnamese community rather than like what makes me Vietnamese American, if that makes sense. So I just see it as kind of like a responsibility like to uphold, rather than like, oh, being Vietnamese American is like pho and like banh mi and like, oh, like let's eat pho like once a week, like like it's not that. It's like sharing this story. So that's kind of how I see it. Like it's kind of like not a job, but it's like it's like a responsibility, if that makes any sense. I don't know how else to word that.
Is it like Oh wait, no, I had a word. It was like a duty, like for your culture or something.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Like in honor of your culture.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. Like to honor, a duty to honor something, and to also make sure like it's not just honoring you and your story, but everyone else's. Because I feel like you said, like the question is so broad. Like, how do you describe like being Vietnamese American? Is it the food that you eat? Is it the background that you come from? Is it the things that you're interacting with, or is it the contributions that you're putting out into the community, whether it be Vietnamese or not? So like I think a really great example is like in Seattle, like the committee that, or like the team that puts that on every single year, they're doing it like willingly, you know, and they're doing it because, you know, that is so important. I feel like they're very similar to Swan. So going through this process, and even though it comes with a lot of stress and like planning and everything like that, at the end of the day, like we're not getting paid like for this, but why do we do it is the question. And I think it's because of that like duty, that responsibility that we not put on ourselves, but I think it's just there. Like it's unexplainable, really.
I really like that. It was really cool.
I like your hoodie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Friends of Lil Saigon, please hire me.
Oh. So where?
Friends of Lil Saigon, please hire me.
Alright.
Oh, sorry, can I add one thing to the last question?
Of course you can.
So something I'm actually really excited about and really proud of is I actually did an interview recently with Friends of Lil Saigon to be one of like the marketing and communications coordinators. I didn't hear back from them yet, but I was really happy about how the interview went, and I think it goes back into that like responsibility meaning. Like I feel like me being a part of this role or taking on this role is, you know, taking on that responsibility of pushing forth with like bettering the community, the Vietnamese community specifically, and just advocating for whatever we need to advocate for. So I know Little Saigon is like a small like town, but it's like I've like gotten some spoilers from the team that there's going to be a lot of new things happening for like the Vietnamese community, and I think it's really exciting because, at least for me, again, I never grew up like in such a large like community of Vietnamese people, so coming here and seeing that it's like growing like so rapidly, it's just like insane like for me to see that now. But yeah, I'm excited. Please hire me.
Wait, what's Little Saigon? What is Little Saigon?
Little Saigon is a non-profit, and they're based in the International District, and they focus on advocating for the community, economic development of Little Saigon, and empowering and spreading awareness of Vietnamese culture.
Take your time to think.
Cultural teaching. I feel like when it came to like my family, they obviously were, when I looked at them, I understood like, you know, oh, they're Vietnamese. Like, they're Vietnamese, I'm Vietnamese, we're all Vietnamese. When it came to like our religion itself and how that blended with Vietnamese culture, it didn't really have a blend. My parents weren't like the most religious or most Buddhist people out there. So I kind of like lived like, I don't want to say like a normal life, but just a life that was not heavily cultural or heavily religious. And so it was like this kind of, I guess you can just, it's in a way like I'm just standing in the middle of a field and I don't know like where to go. And so like to be guided like by instinct and to be guided by my own like values and beliefs was really important. And of course like my parents were there always, so if like something was wrong, like I would follow their direction. I think I don't know if this is a cultural teaching, but my mom used to say all the time, like, it's like, she would always say like, oh, nếu mà lượm lưng được thì bỏ xuống được, which means like, if you can pick it up, you can put it down. And I think like, I'd say this phrase a lot to like a lot of people who are like going through like certain struggles and whatnot, and I think they've kind of skipped past the meaning. I think a lot of them are like, what do you mean like I can pick it up, if I can pick it up I can put it down, like that doesn't help me like get over like like a breakup or get over like a really hard exam that I just took. But I think for me, when I hear that phrase, I think like it's not about like just picking something up and putting something down. It's the simplicity of like the sentence. It's as if you can say like, if I jump up, I'm gonna go back down. Yeah, it's like it's simple. And something I take from that like that statement is, if life throws something at me, like I'm gonna pick it up and throw it back, and so it's a very like motivational like statement that like my mom used to say all the time, and I think it stuck with me a lot. And like agree to like disagree, like because you know me. But I think a lot of the times like I choose to be this like very like positive person. So I choose to be like this very positive person, and I do admit like it is hard. Like it is hard to like put on the smile and push forward, and I think that's another teaching in a way that my parents always taught me was, when you go to a party you smile, when I tell you something you smile, like when you do this like you should be happy, like be happy for the life that you live, and like everything that we're asking of you like in return is simple. If you can pick it up, you can put it down. So it's like that's what I learned like growing up. And so when it came to like when I went through my first breakup, let's say, like it was definitely like something really emotional, and I never told like my parents because I don't think like we're like emotionally like there, but my mom like definitely knew I was like really sad, and she would say like the phrase that like those simple phrases but in different variations, right? And all I took from that was like it's time to get up. Like if I fall down, it's time to get up. And although like it's not something that's easy to do, it's what needs to be done. And I think that comes with, at least for me, like in my family, it comes with being like our version of being Vietnamese, which is when you get hit, you just get back up. Take a moment, of course, like you don't want to get up too quickly, but you have to get up. And if you don't get up in time, you could be stuck like there forever. And so that's why like when it comes to being in like leadership roles or being in certain situations in my personal life where things get really rough, it's so important for me to like get up and like continue pushing. Sorry. Yeah, it's just so important. And I think like my parents like really like put that in me, and I don't see it as a negative, because I think a lot of people, especially like those who don't have like this like minority-esque like viewpoint or perspective, they think it's like you're shoving your feelings down and you're pushing away your feelings and you're moving forward without taking the time to reflect on them. But me like pushing forward is like, for me in my perspective, is taking that time to push and reflect as I go. And so I think that's what makes Vietnamese people so strong, is our mentality of, even though this sounds so bad translated, like if I'm crying, like my parents would be like, then stop crying. And I knew they didn't mean like, okay, woo, like, but I think they really just mean like, why are you sitting here and like continuously crying when you could, like cry a little bit more, get up, wash your face, and do whatever's next. And I think that mindset is like always pushed down. Like you have to take the time to rest, you have to take the time to mentally heal, and yeah, that will work on like some folks, but at least for me and what I've seen a lot of Vietnamese like kids like mentality is, it's just you got to get back up, and that shouldn't be looked down on. Like you have to keep pushing forward, and that's something that I learned, I think, as a part of like being Vietnamese. My favorite word is nhớ, because it has two meanings. One of them is to remember, and one of them is to miss. And I think I think those two like meanings, to remember and to miss, go hand in hand. When it comes to, you know, when you talk about your family, when you talk about memories, you know, they hold like a special place in your heart. So not only are you remembering like these like memories that you have with your family or your friends or whoever like is in your life, you're also taking time to like flip those. No matter like if you be your parents, your family, your friends, etc. Like you're gonna always remember. You're gonna always miss them, but another thing is to always remember. So even like for those who have passed on or those who are not in your life anymore, I think it's really important to not only miss but remember. I think that's something I'll always think about moving forward. In terms of success, I think as a college student, I know this is very simple, but like getting my degree. One thing that I hope to do when I get my degree is be able to do like that like trend that we saw last year where like the students would give their gown and cap to like their parents, because like they're the reason why like I'm here. Like I would, if I wasn't here, I'd be like in Vietnam. Like, not that that's a bad thing, but I would not have become the person I am today. So being able to hold that diploma like for the very first time and walking down that stage is going to be definitely my version of success. I think another idea of success as a college student is being able to walk around and see the support from the community, like through your friends and the people around you, and knowing that you're valued as someone reliable, and no matter what you do, no matter what mistake you made, you'll always be supported. And as a Vietnamese American, that was the second part, right? As a Vietnamese American, I think success is drawn by the amount of resources that you understand and know, and the activities that you participated in. So, for example, you know, like my involvement and understanding of like Friends of Little Saigon, it's not just about knowing how many Vietnamese foods are there, how many accents are in the alphabet. It's about knowing like where the Vietnamese community is right now and how we can better it or what we can contribute to it. And I think that understanding is really important. So I think that measures success very well. So if you're, you know, asking yourself like, oh, I wonder what the Vietnamese community is like right now in Little Saigon, or I wonder what Little Saigon would look like in the next like 10 years, like that's something to ask and that's something to get involved in, which is really nice. I think one hope I have for the Vietnamese community is like its continued growth. I think being Vietnamese is a very special like situation to be in, because I feel like we're the type of culture that's not like aggressively popular, but we're also not aggressively unseen. We're like in the middle, and I think that's a special place to be in. And I wouldn't ask for the situation to be any different, but I do hope that the Vietnamese community continues to grow. In the sense of pride, I think something that we really lack sometimes is being prideful that we're Vietnamese, and being proud of being Vietnamese and not pushing that down. So that's something I hope and wish as advice for the future like Vietnamese community at SU is to just be happy and like be proud of the community you come from and what you're representing. Bye, humans at VSA.